185milessouth.com.
Smash that Patreon button.
185 Miles South, a hardcore punk rock podcast. What's up, everyone? We are back and talking hardcore, helping out live from the Liberty Bell. It's the king of the windmill. It is Kevin Hare. What's up, dude?
What up?
All right. I interviewed Tommy Carroll from Straight Ahead for this episode. It is at the end of the episode. I wanted to shout out Tribal Publishing, who just did a 100-page zine on Straight Ahead. It was an insta sellout, so respect if you swooped one. You snooze, you lose. And then you should go check out Tribal Publishing regardless, because he just put out the Collective Obsession book, which is like a collection of shirts, like old hardcore shirts. Some people really like that stuff. And then also Cut and Paste. I got that one. That is like a history of like American hardcore fanzines, which is like seriously an insane amount of documentation. I don't even know like how they did that project. So check it out. Tribal Publishing. You know what's up. Kev, a lot going on. Jail broke up. There's trouble in Zululand, and that should give people a lot of shit to talk over the next couple of weeks. But let's jump right in to talking about hardcore instead. How about that? Before we jump in and dive in, let's talk just some short hits here. Combust from New York City put out their LP Belly of the Beast, came out on Triple B. Pyrex, also out of New York City, the other side of New York, put out their LP Body, that came out on Total Punk. There was that Real Bay Shit compilation that came out probably like the day after we recorded a month ago. That came out on Creator Destructor Records. That's got Tsunami, Big Boy, Out of Pocket, and all the Bay bands. So handle business if you haven't gotten that yet. We got to shout out Suicide Eyes out of Philadelphia. They put out their demo 2025 on Rebirth Records. Rebirth Don't Miss. What's up? Early Grave, the other side of Philadelphia. Again, they put out an EP called Sewer Baby Eaten by Rats on Sewer Baby Enterprises. So how about that? Very GBH-esque in that name. We got a band called Overload out of Syracuse. They put out their demo 2025, came out on From Within Records. Land Lost and End of Days out of, Land Lost is Tacoma, End of Days is Seattle. They put out a split, came out on Brain Floss Records. The Sissy Boys out of Muskegon, Michigan, and Field Note out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. They put out a split cassette on Delayed Gratification Records. The Sissy Boys are one of those bands that I don't know how much longer they're going to fly under the radar. Everything they're doing is really good. Gangbusters out of Houston, Texas put out demo 2025 on Corruption Records. Two Witnesses out of Louisville, Kentucky put out their self-titled EP on Streets of Hate Records. Total Con out of the UK. Kev, you hit me to this one. Who Needs the Peace Corps 7-inch came out on Static Shock Records. That thing rips. Never Again out of New Jersey put out their 100% New Jersey hardcore EP on Tribe Dream Records. It is fucking sick. Old Ox out of Sweden, sick name, put out Storfinassen, and it was self-released. Staffen, Don't Get At Me. Strike Force out of Pensacola, Florida put out their demo 2025, Fortress Records. Bad Beat and D-Block, both out of Detroit, did a split. Came out on tape and CD on like 17 different labels. Check that out. Cannonball out of Sheffield, UK, put out a 2-song demo on Youngblood. Dude, Youngblood, putting out sick shit for, Jesus Christ, 25 years now? 30 years? What's going on? Hell yeah. The EKGs out of Pittsburgh put out a self-titled cassette, came out on Kill Enemy Records. And End State out of New York City put out their System Won't Be Fixed. It's self-released. All right, lastly, we got to shout out to Canada for bringing the heat. They put out, the country together put out 5 sick demos over the last month. First off, Caustic out of Kamloops, British Columbia. They put out their demo on Slow Death Records. Self Arrest from somewhere in Canada put out their demo on Total Supply Records. Direct Order put out their demo on Demolition Records. Society Scum out of Winnipeg put out their demo self-released. Shout out. And Activate out of Toronto put out their demo on Total Supply as well. And then lastly, I just want to shout out to Prank Records. They repressed the 1994 Totalitar LP, which is Jesus Christ, it's 30 years old now, but it's a modern classic. So you should check that out. Kev, what's going on, dude?
Not much. Excited about hardcore right now. There are a million things coming out all the time, which we have discussed previously, but it still rings true now that we're almost a quarter of the year through. And it's just every week there's something new that's pretty sick coming out all the time.
Yeah, and we're recording this on Thursday, so a ton of shit's going to come out tomorrow that we're not going to be able to report on. So that is what is going on. Let's dive into it. The first thing I want to talk a little more in depth is Grand Scheme out of Washington, D.C. They put out their self-titled 7-inch on 11 p.m. records. Dude, what do you think, Kevin?
This record is great. It's one of those records that it definitely harkens back to bands like Straight Ahead and that style, but it really also harkens back to the kind of early 2010s bands that we talk about sometimes, like when the most recent Youth Crew revival, I guess, bands like, Stick Together and Disengage and all the Boston bands, etc., when they were just doing these kind of throwback modern sounding bands at the same time. And so I really think that this record is great and kind of right up there with like any of those bands that just mentioned, right? It's just like, it's really, the production on it is great in a way where you don't notice it. And that's what I think makes it so good, where something sounds exactly how it should sound without you having to like think about or notice any of it. I think it's right in the pocket for that, where everything sounds super clear, but it doesn't sound polished. It just sounds clear and loud and just really good. I think all the songs are pretty memorable, especially for a style that's a little bit faster without the big chants or even like mosh parts or anything. I think that it does a really good job of kind of every song standing out. It doesn't really overstay its welcome or anything. I think it's 7 songs for a 7-inch in, 7 or 8 minutes. And this is just, it's absolutely up there for one of my favorite records of the year. One of the things that we've talked about is just how much stuff there is coming out, which I think is a great problem to have. It's very good that there's all this stuff, but with so much, it's kind of hard for things to stand out sometimes. And I think that this is one of the ones that stands out above that other stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk 3 things in a row that kind of are similar, and we should discuss that at the end for sure. I really echo your sentiment on this about like the recording. I think that it's produced really well, but not overproduced. It just sounds great for the style. It's 7 songs in 9 minutes, very solid recording, no guest spots. The singer sounds mean. The singer can skateboard. It's like, what else do you want? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a sick ass band. They put out their 2023 EP back then, and like, this is a level up, and that was very good too. It's like, it's just one of those records, it went up and it's like, oh shit, Grand Scheme, new record, insta cop, you know what I mean? And then they put it up on Spotify. I listened to it and it's like, it's everything I wanted, dude. Sick shit. This is the stuff I want to win. And this is the stuff I like seeing. And it's like, these bands do it well. This is something to chase. So
yeah. Another thing on it too, is that, as you said, this isn't their first record. So this really does sound like a veteran band. But it sounds like a veteran band in, the best way possible, where it's like they've been doing the style for a little while and now they can just kind of kill it and present kind of, I don't want to say this is the final form, but like, they can really present like the I don't want to say polish because that's almost a taboo word, right? But the final like refined form of we've been doing this for a while. We know what we're doing and here it is.
There's a little thought put into like the songs. You can tell like these aren't just like, let's shit stuff out in practice and then go record it, and it's wild because I do think that the first 2 songs on the EP are the best and like they're also the shortest. So it's like they can do special stuff in like such a truncated amount of time. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Identity Shock out of Atlanta put out their Traces EP. It's on 7-inch. It came out on Designated Moshers Unit. very similar in the way it's 8 songs in 7.5 minutes, no guest spots, singer sounds mean. Now, this record already shipped, which is sick. You know, they put it up to sell and they already had them in hand, so I already got it. And it comes with like a full-size lyric sheet and like a big fold-out like newsprint poster, which is always sick when you get a 7-inch and like there's stuff inside it. You know, it's always a buzzkill these days when, you know, with shipping and shit, we're paying like $18 for a 7-inch and you get it and there's no fucking insert. You know, it's like, God damn it, dude. You couldn't spend an extra quarter and give me an insert. You know what I mean? Like, so that's insane. But yeah, respect. Like the layout on this is cool. Here's the thing with like these bands, like it's okay to like just put out records that kick ass. You know what I mean? I think that we talked about that with like the Rat Cage Geffer split from last year. Dan and me talked it. It kind of came out and like there was, you know, each band did like 3 songs, all 6 songs kicked ass. And like nothing was like super memorable, but it's like, I am a fan of hardcore. You know what I mean? Like I like to listen to hardcore and like, this shit is sick. Like 1 minute long, fast songs, some mid-tempo stuff, a mean sounding singer. And like, it is what it is. Like I like to put it on for 8 minutes and have that be it, you know? So like nothing on this record stands out to me except that I just fucking like it.
Yeah, I agree. This record is more pummeling than the Grand Scheme record. It's real fast. Lots of scissor beats kind of over the whole thing. So like I said, it just kind of beats you over the head over and over. And I think in a good way, it kind of reminds me of like some of the Youth Attack bands where, you know, they kind of go more in that fast direction with the scissor beat Youth Crew parts, like that's almost the full band. But I really do like that part of it. I do think I don't want to be a production guy on this one, but like the production sounds a little soft, like it's not mastered all the way or something like that. Like it just kind of, it's kind of a shock going from the Grand Scheme record to this one, just because it's just sounds softer. But other than that, I think that this record is another one that it kind of stands out above the other things, just because this is a little bit of a newer band, but still it's, you know, it's not their first record, so it just sounds like a band that is just kind of coming into their own.
Yeah, it just sounds gnarly, right? It sits somewhere between like Straight Ahead and Power Violence, with like never going all the way Power Violence.
Yeah,
dude. I mean, this record, like we have to talk the production though, or like I can be the bad guy on it, like. This record, because like this is like a perplexing record, dude, because like generally you listen to a record and it's like either it sounds good or it sounds like shit. And this thing, like this record straight up sounds whack in my truck. Like it sounds terrible. And then like, so I was like, what the fuck is wrong with this, dude? Because I was listening to it on Spotify or whatever. And then I listened to it in my headphones and I was like, all right, well, this sounds like a little better, you know? And then I put the record on my turntable and it sounds pretty sick at home. So like, I don't know what paradox that is, but like, yeah, when you're listening to like the digital files of this, like it does sound a little weird. And it's funny that you say you think it might be like undermastered. It sounds to me like they might have like tried to compensate with the mastering and like master this to like 11 or something, like, and that's why the guitars sound kind of weird. But like, again, I'm not an engineer. I should have consulted with someone, but yeah, this recording isn't great. And hey, it is what it is. Like, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's got to be noted. But this does not like kill the appeal of this record for me, because what I like about this record is that it's pummeling, and like, you know, listening to it on vinyl at my house, it's super sick. It's like, it's what I wanted from this band and they delivered. Okay, let's go on and talk With Hate out of Boston. They put out their 7-inch From Boston With Hate on Tribe Dream Records. 7 songs in 12 minutes. This is another band playing like traditional roots hardcore. And it's like, this stuff is back and I am here for it, dude. What do you think?
Dude, this record is fucking awesome. I think that this is easily, again, we're talking about how much stuff that's come out this year. This is absolutely the one that I've listened to the most, that I've liked the most. It only came out a week ago, but it's absolutely number one for me. I've listened to it quite a bit. This band has been in the works for a while. There were some songs floating around last year, and their first show I think was last September, but it took a while for the demo to actually happen. And I was really excited and looking forward to it because the teasers that I heard were great. And this one absolutely like even over delivers on what I was hoping for. The stuff that makes this really stand out is that, again, this sounds like a real defined, like they really worked on it for a long time too, even though this is the first thing. And they did make sure to make it a 7-inch right away, because I think that they knew that it was better than just a normal demo. But what it really does, it does a really good job of kind of combining a lot of different things in hardcore that are all really recognizable and make sense, and just kind of putting their own specific spin on it, and a regional spin on it too. So like, it sounds a lot like the two biggest things that I think of are Right Brigade with choke singing. And I think that that's a great combo. I mean, two great Boston bands, and With Hate is absolutely wearing Boston on their sleeve, which is something that we talk about regionalism and stuff. And I think in hardcore, it's really a great thing and important. And I think that it's easy in the modern age to kind of go away a little bit because of how homogenized everything can be. But I do think that recently there's been a lot of bands from different areas. I mean, you have With Hate, you have Suicide Eyes from Philadelphia, you have Freeze Out from Texas, right? These bands sound like bands from their areas, and that's really cool. And I think that With Hate is the peak example of that, where they just sound exactly like a band from Boston should. And it's just great. All the songs are really catchy. The vocals are really memorable. They sound unique today to most bands. Like I said, the singer sounds a lot like Choke. The lyrics are awesome. They're basically just pissed off, hating everybody in the scene, talking about 24-year-old New Jacks, which really cracked me up. Talking about if Doug the singer becomes the jaded old head, to just shoot him in the head. And just stuff like that. Like, it's just really the total package. It's super memorable, and it's just perfect. It's a perfect hardcore 7-inch.
Yeah, the lyrics are very insular, which like I actually appreciate. Kev, talking about regional sounds, we got to shout out False Salvation. They sound like a band from Philly. You know what I mean?
That's all that I want to do. Yeah, all I want.
Yeah. The singer like sings with a snarl. Like, I would say he doesn't sound like Mike Judge, but it's like that type of snarl. But like, he's listened to so much Choke bands that like he slips into that like Choke-esque tunefulness. Like, I think without even trying to do it sometimes. And again, like ending with a Dropkick Murphys song, like seems like an interesting choice, but like it doesn't sound like that much of a departure really. Like it fits in pretty well. But like, hey dude, if you're going to do a Dropkick song, I want to hear, I went to see the Stiff Little Fingers play. The kids from Belfast were tearing it up. One of the greatest songs ever. The thing that I appreciate about this band is like they're delivering on something that I've been begging for recently, which is like a true attempt to try to write choruses in roots hardcore music, and like, I think that a lot of times bands of this style and in the raw punk style, they shy away from trying to write choruses because they're fucking scared. Because like, if you don't put yourself out there, you don't have like the chance that someone's going to be like, oh, that band is corny. You know what I mean? Oh, that's corny. Or like you write like a sing-along part and no one sings along and then you feel like a foo. You know what I mean? So like, it's gotta be commended when like bands go for it like this. And you know what? There's a band very close to them that's like kind of setting the North Star, right? It's like that Haywire, Like a Train song. Like that is the North Star. Like, write a song that catchy. I think this band does some serious attempts and pulls it off, in a lot of parts on this record. Like, there are memorable songs on here. And like, this is something where you never know what's going to get looked back on as classics, like this might be, 10 years from now. So
they told me about the Dropkick Murphys cover a while ago. And I was like, I looked at them. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no way. And they just go, it's pretty much just a hardcore song. And I was like, I guess so. And then I hear it here and I'm like, well, they're right. It is pretty much just a hardcore song. So it works.
I used to have that 7-inch Curse of a Fallen Soul by the Dropkick Murphys. Came out in like the late 90s. And that song On the Attack is like a straight up hardcore song too. So like, they got some that are just blazers. One thing I wanted to talk before we move on from this block of 3 bands is, the idea that what people are calling regular hardcore is back. And like, some people kind of is bubbling up of, is there too much already? How do you feel about that, Kevin?
So I understand that to the point of there is so much stuff all the time that it's easy for these demos to wash over you because there's so many and the quality of them is pretty high where it's hard to keep track of how much there is coming out all the time. But the thing that I counter that is it's not too much because it's going to translate to shows, and that's where hardcore really happens, right? Like a lot of the bands that we're talking about haven't even played a show yet. So the actual scene, like the thing that's important, the living, breathing part of hardcore, it's only starting to feel the effects of this return, right? Like there's not as many of these shows of just all bands like this yet. There's not as many people at all of these shows yet. These bands are all bubbling and they're just starting. Like we're not at the point where hardcore is dominated by these bands where the biggest bands are these bands. Like we're in the germinating phase of that, right? So just because there's 3 months of not being able to keep up with how the amount of demos that are out there doesn't mean that the scene is oversaturated, because it hasn't affected it hasn't changed everything as much as it's going to, right? Like we're in the beginning of this new phase. So it's like at one point there were new heavy bands a few years ago, right? And you go, oh man, there's a lot of new heavy bands. That's cool. And then later on is when you start to be like, oh yeah, there's only really heavy bands, and we're not anywhere close to that. So I just think that people are like, I don't really understand what the issue is or what people really wanted, because people have been talking about this for so long, and then all of a sudden we have 3 months, 6 months, a year of bands kind of going back to center, and it's all of a sudden a bad thing.
I think that it's important that the bands are real bands. That would be my concern, is that like, I hope that bands playing this style, it's not like a side project that like, you know, people are like, oh, let's do one, like, you know, of like old school hardcore, you know, and like they don't care about it. That would be the thing that could like body this shit before it gets started. But you're right. Like, this is hardcore made for the live setting, right? And like, if you're not in the room, you're missing out on a giant element of what hardcore is, you know? And I know that like a year or two ago, like a bunch of nerds tried to cancel Mind Force for saying something similar, you know, saying like that was like an ableist statement of like, you need to be in the room to understand what it's all about. But like, it's true, you know? So I think that it is important for like these bands to be active and play, and that'll make some stand out. But, you know, there are some of like, not the bands that we talked tonight, but like, you know, I try to listen, at least spot check, listen to everything that comes through. And like, there are some demos that's like, I don't know about this. You know what I mean? Like, but then again, it's like, dude, if you go on the No Echo playlist, like 90% of it is fucking terrible. And shout out to Carlos for like keeping that completest ass playlist. Like, that's insane. But like, almost everything on there is terrible. And like, mid music of like this genre, like this straightforward hardcore, is like better than most things, like in my opinion. So, and also like, you know, going back to like the live setting. So there's that band Raised Wrong. It's like a bunch of scene veterans, like a bunch of older dudes, like, you know, Pettibone sings for it. Ito's in it. They play the Shea Cafe, and like in San Diego right now, it's a lot of like metal is like what's popular. Right. So like, and the Shea skews very young. Like it's a lot of kids like under 21, you know what I mean? So like, they haven't really seen like that many straight hardcore bands. And like, this band does it very well. And you should check out their 12-inch on Indecision Records, right? But dude, after they played like a song, like kids just went nuts, like, yeah, you know, and like they didn't know what to do during it because there's no like, okay, here comes the mosh part, side to side, people, like, you know, like there's no mosh calls, there's no like generic like mosh part, like paint by numbers shit. But like, people didn't know it hit them. Like fast hardcore in your face. Like, it is great live. And that's what's up. And I think there was some like people that like saw the light that night.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the craziest videos that I've seen this year is that Start Today band playing in California. And I think they were playing like this big Screamo show. And the whole show is just like hundreds of kids stage diving and singing along and going crazy. And if you look at them, like, you know, judging the book by its cover, like, you know, it's not necessarily hardcore kids, but they all had the spirit and the energy. and it's like, it's awesome. So like, that's what we need. And like, complaining about that before we even really get to that boiling point again seems crazy. But this weekend, luckily, is Rebirth Fest 2, where I'm going to see at least Identity Shock and Grand Scheme. So I'm really excited, especially a lot of new hardcore bands are playing. But unfortunately, I am not too sure on how to report from the future on that one.
That's right. If only we could go to Kevin in the future to report on this upcoming weekend's show.
All right, this is Kevin from the future with a quick report on the weekend, which was awesome. First, I want to say I think I said that both Identity Shock and Grand Scheme were playing, and I was wrong. Grand Scheme did not play, but With Hate did do a surprise set. So two of the bands we talked about this weekend were on it. Overall, the vibes of the weekend were just unmatched. It was awesome. There was probably ended up being about 40 covers, I think, for the whole weekend. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but at least 40, maybe 45 covers all weekend. Almost every single non-legacy band did one, and even Death Threat busted out the Juggernaut intro and a Chain of Strength cover. So it was great. Some quick highlights. Scarab was awesome. Identity Shock was way better live. I like the record, obviously, as discussed, but way better live. Going back to Scarab, they did a gimmick where before every song, people pick the next song out of a bag, which was fun. No Idols delivered. I hadn't seen them yet. They were great. After the demo from last year, they covered Betray by Minor Threat. The breakdown set was unbelievable. Maybe the best breakdown set I've ever seen. The vibes were just great through the whole thing. With Hate, C4, and Burning Lord did a quick all block of two surprise sets and the C4 set in the middle, and that was the highlight of Saturday. But yeah, False Salvation, we covered Integrity and Right Brigade, so I thought that both of those were pretty cool. And yeah, it was just a great weekend. There, Freeze Out, another one we've talked about before. I really liked it. Just one of those things where there's just so much stuff all weekend, and it was just great. So it made me really excited about hardcore and what was going on right now. And lots of great bands, and the vibes were great. And like I said, the cover gimmick was just unbelievable just to see. It got to the point where it was disappointing if a band didn't do one. We made it through Underdog or to Underdog on Saturday with every band doing a cover, and then into Sunday. Oh, another thing too, the Underdog and Death Threat sets were both also awesome. Underdog was easily the best time that I've seen them. So yeah, it was sick. Hopefully Bob does another Rebirth Record showcase next year, because that was the vibe that was the show this year and the vibe this year, and it was great.
All right, let's talk the last new thing. I want to talk the Nisemono LP that came out on Toxic State. This is a band out of New York City. I believe it's a project band with two dudes doing it, but goddamn, I think they laid down like the best LP of the year so far, or at least of this first quarter of 2025. What do you think about this, Kev?
This record is fucking awesome. You know when something's good, so good, you just say no notes. That's me on this one. Like, no notes. It's just fucking awesome. It's fast. It's got memorable guitar parts. It hits right in the same spot of more recent bands like Rat Cage and Impalers, where it's just really raging, really good guitar leads that don't overshadow the song, but they complement every single song that they're in. The way that they do riffs on this record are really cool too, because with a lot of DB bands, obviously, like the Discharge formula is kind of just pummeling you with the same riff over and over. And Nisemono doesn't really do that. Like the riffs kind of evolve and like kind of ramble on in a good way. Like the songs are still really short and concise, but like they kind of evolve and they're not static, which I think is really cool on this. And really the most important thing is a lot of times the production of new punk bands really hinders them, where especially the vocals are really distorted and kind of screechy and like type of thing. And the vocals here just sound fucking great. They sound pretty clear. There is some doubling on the vocals, but they're not really distorted. So and the guitars and everything sound really big and energetic, and the whole record just pummels you. It's 13 minutes long, and it's the perfect length. I don't feel ripped off by having only 13 minutes, especially for an LP. But I also don't really know if I really want that much more on this. Like, it's 9 songs. When it finishes, you just go, well, that was fucking awesome. And you just repeat it over again. And like when this came out, I'm not joking. I think I listened to it like 10 times on Friday alone. I was just listening to it literally over and over. Like, it ended, I'm like, I got to listen to it again. I got to listen to it again. So now already the songs are kind of just imprinted on my brain. And it's one of those things too, like, it's kind of like the identity shock, where it's not like any song by itself stands out. Like, I can't go back and tell you like, oh, this part is great, that part is great, but it's just the total package of it. It just hits you over the head over and over, and it's just perfect. Like, exactly what I want for this kind of, faster, deep beat. It's kind of sounds a little bit Swedish, kind of sounds like they talk about Totalitär and Framtid in the write-up, and it definitely is reminiscent of how both of those bands just kind of pummel you. So yeah, this one came out of left field. I guess they did a demo a few years ago, and but it either completely missed me or I forgot it. So when I heard this song and I saw the artwork, which the artwork is also great, but when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that looks cool. And I listened to the song, I'm like, oh, this seems good. And then I kind of forgot that the LP was coming. And then last week, it just hit me out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh my God, this record is easily one of my favorites so far this year. And, I like it so much, I would assume that I'd be coming back to it by the end of the year too.
Yeah, it's a killer record. 9 songs, 13 minutes, nothing throwaway. Like Kev said, like nothing super stands out on it, but like it is kind of a sum of all parts. It reminds me of like the Public Acid LP in that way from last year. Although, again, like Kev was talking about, like the production, this is very clean production, which, for the sound is very interesting. In fact, like maybe I'll start with my like negative and then I'll get into my positive, because like I was going to speak this at the end, but because you brought it up, it's very clean. In fact, like I'm almost like begging for more tone on it, like a little bit more like gnar distortion on the guitar, or maybe a little fuzzier bass or something. I don't know. Maybe they're playing a little too safe with the tones, but then again, maybe this is like a fuck you to like everything of like the raw punk style having to be like so extreme with like distorted buried vocals and like fucking HM2s and like bass you can't even hear it. It just sounds like a fucking frog farting. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's like purposely not gnarly sounding. I don't know. It does allow like the riffs to speak for themselves. And like, the riffage on like the first and third songs, like that fast left hand stuff is like really my favorite thing to listen to these days. They did call out Totalitär on the write-up, and kind of anything that is like super left-handy reminds me of like that last Totalitär LP, I believe from 2007. But yeah, I absolutely love it. And like Kev said, this thing just flies by. When it came out, I listened to it 3 times in a row. So that's pretty wild for me, because like I generally don't make it through a whole LP. And I do think that in modern times, like just being able to like get through an LP without skipping something is like an epic win. So yeah, this is a great accomplishment. And again, like Kev, you brought up like not feeling ripped off that it's like, 13 minutes or whatever on an LP. Because, LPs are getting more and more expensive. Dude, pay this artist who like did this album cover like all the proceeds. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy to like support this dude. This album cover is like a early favorite to win album art of the year for sure. Final thoughts.
Yeah, like I said, the biggest thing with this record is just how it completely took me out of left field. Like my other favorite record this year so far that we talked about earlier was the Massacred record, and I was really excited for that. Like I knew it was going to be good. I knew I was going to listen to it a lot. This one, I knew nothing about. I had no clue that it was even going to be a thing, and now here we are. I don't see how I don't come back to this at the end of the year. I think you talked about the Public Acid record too. Like last year, the record that like I kept coming back to over and over as the palate cleanser was the Invertebrates record. And that's, 12 minutes. And it's kind of the same thing where like, it's not like every song stands out, but the whole thing fucking is great. This, I think, is easily going to be the same thing where it's like exactly the same amount of time where like I could just put it on if I have a quick drive or if I'm going for a walk and I don't know what to put on, or, you know, I'm at the office and I don't know, like I just have to like kind of zone out for a little while. Like this is going to be the perfect record for that I think I'm just going to come back to all year long.
Yeah, I mean, I foresee myself probably putting this on a timeout until it comes in the mail and then probably jamming it for like an entire week and not taking it off the turntable. So we'll see.
The fight lasts for hours, each ram battering the other dozens of times.
Head to head.
All right, we are going head to head with two modern classics. We are putting the Boston Strangler LP Primitive from 2011 up against the Boston Strangler LP Fire from 2014. Primitive came out on Fun with Smack. Fire came out on Boston Strangler Records. Dude, this is a good matchup, Kev. And so what happened here was we were talking about this band and Kev was like, you know what? I might like the second one more. And I was like, you know what, dude? I'm a fucking asshole. I don't even think I've ever listened to the second one. You know what I mean? And so I did. And it was like, God damn, you know, this is a real matchup. How you feel about this, Kev?
So when Boston Strangler, when Primitive came out, honestly, when the demo came out, I listened to it and I wasn't as into it as I thought I should have been. Like I was loving bands like this at the time, like all the Boston bands or whatever, like, but this one didn't hit with me as much. And even when Primitive came out, it was a phenomenon. Like it now, like records now you are pretty easy to get. I think people do like lower pressings of them than they used to, but also maybe not quite as many people are getting them. So it's easy to get. But at the time, it was impossible to get the first press of the Boston Strangler record because it just sold out everywhere immediately. And they were going for a decent amount of money, but it didn't connect with me as much then. And I don't know why. I saw them once or twice around Primitive 2 and like, it was cool, but I liked, you know, No Tolerance more, Rob and Mom more, etc. But then when Fire hit, I listened to it and it just floored me. Like right away, I was just like, this record is unbelievable. Two of the songs, The Truth and one of the other ones was on the demo. And then three of the songs were on a promo that they put out for this record. And so like a lot of it was around before. But the thing that really makes this special, and I should say, I did go back after and then I listened to Primitive and I do think that it's fantastic and like it's awesome. And I was very stupid for not liking it as much as I should have when it came out. But the thing that really connected with me right away on Fire is that it really feels like a full record. It feels really theatric in a good way. It starts with a cool intro that kind of like with the striking the match and then like, you know, the slower guitar part that kind of builds up. Like every song on here is memorable. Yes, like The Truth is a re-record from the demo, but the re-recording here is, I think, the definitive version of the song. And it's a modern hardcore classic song. And then like everything like Forward to Hell, Outcast, like it's all just super, everything is catchy. I think it's faster than Primitive. It's slower than Primitive. It's catchier than Primitive. And I just think that it's, you know, I think too, when you hear people talk about Boston Strangler now, I do think that people talk mostly about Primitive. And I don't want to say that I think that that's wrong because I think that you have two classic LPs and it's really hard for a band, especially in the past 10 or 15 years to do two classic LPs. So, but I think that Fire is kind of dismissed, especially because they didn't play too much after it came out. I think, and even really before it came out, I think they were kind of, you know, petering out a little bit. But like, I think this is the real definitive statement from the band. And really the best thing on the record, I think, is the last song, which is Slow Burn. And I think that this is truly like one of the greatest hardcore songs of all time. I think that It's a real anthemic. It's almost structured similarly to a song like Plastic Bomb or something like that, where it's kind of the modern hardcore epic that kind of, it's got a catchy chorus and it's got good verses and it's got good leads. And then as it goes on, it just keeps building and building and building at the end to the big mosh part. And like the whole song just explodes. It's got a really, really catchy, I don't know if it's a lead or a solo, but it's got a really catchy guitar part towards the end. And it just all comes together. And then it ends with going into a piano that's kind of repeating the guitar part, which could be really corny. But in this case, it really is like just kind of ends the album perfectly. And yeah, I just think that the song is a classic song. I think that the album is a classic album. I saw them one time after this. They opened or they direct support for Infest in Brooklyn, like not too long after. And they were just unbelievable. And they ended with Slow Burn Into the Truth, like directly right into it. And it was 10 years ago. And I still think about how just cool and perfect the transition was, especially if you kind of forget about the truth, like you'd think that Slow Burn would be what they end with, but they just faded right into the truth. And it was just unbelievable. So, yeah, I think that it's very obvious I'm going to pick Fire here. Primitive, I think, is great, but Primitive is kind of the first record, and I think that Fire is the definitive, this is the band's legacy record.
I think that Fire is a great follow-up. I think that they lean more slapshot, more singy. The recording's different. I don't know if like the guitars are more panned out to the side or whatever. It sounds less compressed. The guitars sound a little warmer. The singing is more melodic. That intro is like legit tuneful with like those chord progressions and the bass walks, and I think that they set out like to do like, this is like a project, like in a way that like this was a mapped out ass record, which you don't think of for like roots hardcore bands. So like, they're going to take you on a journey with an LP, from like the light in the match on the intro, like you talked about, to like the big, long, like epic last song. And then like ending with the piano, before when we're talking about With Hate, I was talking about like bands not taking risks because everyone is so scared of being called corny. And like, I think that here you have a band like taking some relatively big risks, especially on a second LP of this style, which like a lot of bands don't pull off. And they're really, knocking it out of the park with this stuff. The other thing about this record is I think that it's pretty back heavy. Like, I think that the 4-song run at the end of the record is great. And like ending that strong is different than the first record, because I think that Primitive is very front heavy. In fact, like, so my experience with this band was like, I was never like a super lover of the B9 board, and like stuff would get hyped on there all the time. And like, you'd listen to it and it's like, what the fuck, dude? Like a lot of people on that board, like they were like the proto Reddit people, you know what I mean? Like you could tell like they were like internet people that didn't go to shows. Not everyone, but like a lot of people that like hyped shit. So a lot of times I was like dismissive of stuff on there, and that might have happened with the demo, or I don't even know if I heard of the demo when it came out. But Primitive, and real quick side note, I think Primitive came out in 2012. It's a test press that came out in 2011, so don't get at me. Anyway, when Primitive came out, it was like super hyped on the B9 message board, and I was like, all right, let me check this out. So I downloaded off some like Blogspot blog probably, and like listened to it, and I was like, God damn. Like, these people got one right. Like, this is like a fucking modern classic. You know what I mean? Now, listening to it now, like, whatever, 15 years later, I do think it is very front loaded, because I think that the first 3 songs are like all-time songs. And really, if you put those 3 songs and the song Boston Strangler on a 7-inch, like it might be one of the great USHC 7-inches, like, of all time, like a timeless record. Instead, you get like a really, really good roots hardcore LP. I mean, it is classic, right? But like, I do think that Locked Inside drags a little bit, and I think the end of the record gets a little too mid-tempo and monotone. But like, those first 3 songs are like so good, I don't even know how to describe them. You know what I mean? So like, on that alone, I gotta go Primitive. But this was a great matchup. And I mean, maybe Fire is the better record overall, but like just nothing can fuck with 1, 2, 3, and 5 off Primitive.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that you say that Fire is backloaded because Forward to Hell I think is a great song. Outcast, Broken Spirit, like I just think that the whole thing is great all the way through, and I think there's just a testament to how great the record is. But I mean, like we said, like both LPs are classics, so there's really not a wrong answer here. But I really think whenever we do the 2000s list, like Fire, I think is going to be in my top 5, and honestly, it could even be number 1. I think it might have been my working number 1 last time I tried.
Forward to Hell might be the best song on the record, so I don't know. I guess the beginning of the record doesn't compare to the other one, and so like I was like, you know what? This one doesn't fall off like the other one to me. So I don't know. Both of them are great, and like what an accomplishment to be a band of this style and to put out 2 like great LPs. Something special.
It's your time!
All right, we're doing It's Your Choice. Kev wanted to talk the Acme record To Reduce the Choir to One Soloist. This LP came out on Edison Records in 1996. It compiles their 1993 demo as well as their 1994 7-inch. This is not on Spotify, so it won't be on the playlist, but you should check out the playlist, 185milessouth.com. Click that playlist link at the top of the screen or just find us on Spotify. I will link this in the Substack that'll come out tomorrow. So check it out there. Kev, what do you think about this record and why did you want to talk about it?
So one of the things that we've been discussing is kind of metalcore and how it's a genre that, not that you want to understand, I don't think that's that, but it hasn't really been covered too much on the podcast and people have asked about it. And it's just kind of a blind spot for you. Most of it doesn't connect. So when we were talking, I was like, all right, I have one for you that I think maybe you would like. At least you might find interesting than more of some of the more chaotic type of stuff that people think about or the more melodic stuff. So that's why I brought up this Acme record. They're a band that existed. I think they existed from like 1991 to 1995. They did a demo cassette and then the demo 7-inch, which I can't even tell if it's the same recording or not. There's extra stuff on the tape and then just 3 comp songs and that's it. They kind of just fell off the face of the earth. I was told that they like kind of just stopped talking to people and that distros even had money for them and they were never able to get it back to them. Doing a little bit of research, it did seem like some went on to be in bands like Carroll and Morser. Morser did a split with the Swarm. But yeah, I brought this one up because I thought that maybe it would be something that you'd be interested in. The reason that I like it is that I think that it's definitively an early metalcore record. Like, I don't think you can listen to this and not think that. But at the same time, it's not quite as chaotic as some of the other things. It's not like it's just, a guy jerking off the fretboard the whole time and like going like in super crazy timing or anything. Like, it's got real heavy parts and kind of chugging parts and real chaotic vocals, but not like inhuman chaotic vocals. It's just kind of like what everything was going on at the time. Kind of, you can hear the early metalcore in there. You can hear kind of the screamo stuff that was going on in there. So I really like this. You can kind of, this is one of those bands where I really can't say what their influence is because you hear them cited and you hear it be like, oh yeah, people talk about Acme and you can like hear them later in bands like Converge and stuff like that. But like, it's hard to say if they actually influenced those bands or if those bands were kind of like influenced by the same thing Acme were. So I don't really know. But yeah, I just like how this band just really pummels you, especially the highlight song is Attempt, which is the second song. And right away, like as soon as it starts, it just right into a really heavy, just wall of guitars and vocals, just a real like heavy scream right in the beginning, right into just a heavy part. And then it transitions into another kind of more in the pocket heavy choking part, almost kind of like an Unbroken type of heavy part, but like with more distortion and a little heavier. And then it just kind of keeps going from there. I mean, I do think the one kind of flaw of this band is that the songs kind of peter out a bit towards the end where the songs themselves are a little bit front loaded and top heavy. But otherwise, this is a record that I I come back to a decent amount, especially with how metalcore has kind of been a cited thing, especially like European metalcore bands. This is one that I feel like has gone under the radar a little bit compared to some of the other ones. And for me, I think it's better than almost all of them. And I do like, too, there's Mystery where they put out 7 songs. I mean, really, there are the comp songs, but it's really like a 4-song demo, and then they disappeared, and that's it. And then they have this kind of cited legacy record. I don't think they've ever reunited or anything. They just dropped this out, and then that's it, and fall off the face of the earth. And I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think that this has a lot of good things going for it. Like, I do not like metalcore at all. And that's mostly just because, like, when I got into hardcore, I liked like the revival stuff, and I had to sit through a million bands like trying to sound like this. So like I have a bias towards this type of music, and it's not like Acme's fault. It's all the bands like trying to sound like this. And when you trace back like the roots of metalcore, like, first of all, I'm not an expert, so I might get everything wrong on this, but like what I look to is like kind of either the beginning or the proto would be like this record, or that second Rorschach LP, the Protestant one, that or the Unbroken stuff, I guess. Like, but that's not as like chaotic. Like this has like that metal moshiness. It has like the throat vocals. It has the metal picking. It has like lots of single string playing. So it's like that's all like things that like combine to make like 90s metalcore. You know, what I think this has going for it is the recordings are great, especially for the era. Like it just sounds good to listen to, which like you have to have for heavy metal. Like if the recording doesn't sound good in metal, like get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? That's half the point. The singer has an awesome voice, like a legit great throaty voice. Like maybe it's somewhere like below throat, above gut. You know, that's nice. The songs are all relatively short. Like they clock in around the 2-minute mark, which is like something that all the clones of this band like never got. It's kind of in the way that like everyone was like influenced by Satisfaction as the Death of Desire, but everyone missed like that one of the great things about it was the brevity, and no one like figured that out except for Terror. And look, everyone loved Terror. You know what I mean? But even Hatebreed never did it again. Like Hatebreed turned into like a 3-4 minute band, you know? But like this band, like they tuck a lot into these 2-minute songs. They can take you on a ride. I think that like, you know, while I don't love this, I'm not going to go back to it. It wasn't like that punishing for me. I guess I did enjoy parts of listening to it. So like in that way, like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I'm sentenced to death, but like I get to choose like my means, you know, like they used to have that in Utah, right? You get to like, oh, do you want to get in the gas chamber or do you want to just get shot in the head? You know, and there's that one scene in like Monty Python, The Meaning of Life, where the guy gets to like choose how he dies. So he gets chased off a cliff by a bunch of topless rollerbladers, you know? So like, I guess like this record is like me getting chased off a cliff by a bunch of topless roller skaters. So, but yeah, I mean, I did enjoy listening to this because like, I do think it's important because, you know, like the demo being 1993, like this is like very early for the style. And so like, I care about the history of hardcore, even the pieces that I don't like. And like, I do think that this is still dyed in the wool hardcore. Like these dudes are not trying to be famous. These dudes are not trying to like cross over. So, yeah, much respect. Great pick. Glad we spent some time on this.
I'm taking it back to the old school because I'm an old fool.
I'm taking it back to the old school because I'm an old fool.
Yo, what's up, motherfuckers? Old school.
All right, let's go old school. I wanted to talk just very, very briefly. The band out of Switzerland named Sozz, they put out 2 7-inches, but we're going to talk the first one called Patrol Car. They came out on Farmer Records in 1979. And again, I don't really have anything to say about this. It just like, it could have fit in perfectly on No Future Records in like 1982. And like, it's so notable that it's like a Swiss band doing that like 81, 82, 83 No Future sound, like, you know, 2 years before that stuff really pops off. And like, it's a Swiss band, not a UK band. So what do you think about this, Kev?
Yeah, you know, this was cool. The first song is obviously the better of the two here. It's a big, like, anthemic, just power pop song, which I liked. But otherwise, the thing that really stood out to me was that the drums on the second song just sound crazy. They're like almost industrial, but for like a power pop band. So I that is like, I find that to be really it's really cool when we listen to some of this stuff where of the really early bands, especially stuff that's not like classic or canonized, to just hear choices that people made before there was really such a thing as like the right choice. And I think that that's like the most interesting thing that of when you kind of dive into stuff that is below the surface is just kind of seeing the choices that bands make and kind of wondering why they made those choices and like kind of thinking about, is it a good choice or bad choice or whatever. So I think that that is just one of the real interesting things here is just, when there's no normal, just what bands kind of want to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's 1979. Punk is only 3 years old. Like, that's insane. I mean, think about like how many people got into hardcore like during COVID. It's like those people have been into hardcore now longer than like punk existed when the Sozz 7-inch came out. So pretty insane. All right, I'm joined by Tommy Carroll from Straight Ahead. What's up, dude?
What's going on there, man? Yeah, what's going on?
What is going on? All right, so you had a thrash band in the 80s with Craig Satari called NYC Mayhem. Can you talk about that, how that came together and what music you were into at the time?
Yeah, so I guess everything started just into music as a young kid. I had my older sister, all my sisters were into music, and one of them used to take me to concerts. The other one was, into Zeppelin and Bad Company and all that. And, my father was a singer and always into music. So I was with a few kids from the neighborhood, and we wanted to start a band. So I was around 14, so I had just gotten my working papers, and so I was able to buy a drum set. And one kid decided he'd play bass, and the other one guitar. So being I had the most money, because I was the only one working at that time, I saved up all my money all summer, and I bought like a Tama Swing Star, and it started from there. I played with the other kids; they kind of drifted off, and I met a kid Lance that was in my school, into a school, Wagner Junior High School in Manhattan on 76th and 2nd Avenue. And he was like, I sing for a band. And it was Gordon Ansis and Tony Shrimpkin. That was the original members, and it became what became New York City Mayhem. And I tried out for them. I was terrible, and but they needed a drummer. They were actually pretty good musicians for their age and the time. And we rehearsed a few times, and it took off from there. We played our first show at the Show Place in New Jersey. That was our first gig. I think Danny Loker from Nuclear Assault drove us there. They had their big truck, so we all got in the back, and when am I jumping the gun? No, that's what happened. So we played that show, and a little after that, we were going to CBGB's, and we met Craig through Danny Loker, and we replaced Tony with Craig. Thought it'd be more of a fit, and it just, this is so long ago. We're going on 40 years now, right? 40 years plus, and it's glad to be remembered. But trying to think back and all this stuff. So I might leave pieces out. I just simply don't remember. But we got Craig, and it just took off from there. Then we started playing all shows, and and that's really how it started from there. I got one gig after the other, and played CB's a couple of times. And these both bands were short lived, if you think about it. So
Sure.
Gordon, we're going in a different direction, getting a little more hardcore. Once we went to CBG, I think the first one to CBG was in 1984 to see AOD. And that just, the feel for it and everything else just became, we started leaning more in that direction, just the availability between the crowd and the bands. It was just something, that like places like Lemore's and stuff didn't have. I don't know. I fell in love with it as soon as I walked in there, and whole hardcore scene, and that was really that was it for in terms of mayhem, and then we became straight ahead once Gordon left, and we got Rob Echeria to play guitar. He was in the band Coven with Craig forehand, and then Armand was a friend of ours. I knew all these guys from shows, from metal shows, Lou from Sick of It All, and Pete. Like we seen them at all the shows. We always, we were in the underground in Metallica when they came to Lemore's and the Roseland Ballroom, and Slayer. Seen them at the Real Theater when they first came to New York. I would see these guys down in the Village at the record stores and stuff. So I go back a long way with those guys and seeing the whole scene, how they developed, and they went the same way going to CBs with us. They actually went to that AOD show with us. We just became a crowd that we were seeing them at the Slayer show, and kind of jumping all over the place here.
Yeah. I had that as the second question because Tony Retman did that great New York hardcore book that you're quoted in, and you talk about going to CBGBs and seeing AOD, and that kind of being your gateway to hardcore. Can you kind of like talk about like generally what were shows at CBGB like in 1985? Like what was the vibe?
Oh, I mean, like I said, just the bands, the interaction. You didn't have that in the metal scene. There was a little bit of distance, maybe because we were a little younger and stuff. But the stage diving, just the whole atmosphere. There's a rich history in CBGBs. Not that there wasn't in like Lemore's and stuff, but it was just something to it. I mean, you go back to the bands that played there, and you felt it. Like I don't know. I just was drawn to it the first time I went there, and I think everybody else was. And look what came of it, But yeah, it was. The shows were great. Like I said, I came around CBs in 1984, so. Like I would say that's the second tier. The other guys were like from 80, 81, 82, and 83. Yeah. Then we, Agnostic Front and all the original, Cro-Mags and stuff. But they didn't really start developing until we started going. Like, I was right before AF signed to Combat Core and put out their second record, and the Cro-Mags were just like getting it, getting real tight, and they came out with their demo. And no, it was great. Like, and the connection with, Youth of Today, I played drums for them for a while, and, Gorilla Biscuits and all, Token Entry, and, Anthony with Raw Deal, and it was such a good network of people, and the shows were a lot of fun, not only CBGBs, but the Right Track Inn, a few other places, but going back to CB's, the atmosphere, yeah, it was electric, man. It was, some shows, and then when I first seen AF, that was unbelievable, and Cro-Mags always, these just felt like, some of these things, especially the Cro-Mags, felt like a concert at, a place that held like 400 people, tops. But it was something. It was moving, man. It hit me right in my soul. I took to that. I mean, I loved it. It's every Sunday, look forward to that, being such a young kid. We're talking, 14, 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
So it was just,
Yeah, with you coming in the early second wave, like were people already talking about like the good old days of New York hardcore, like A7, 171A?
Well, I'll tell you this, because when I look at it, like I used to say the same thing, a little standoffish with some of the, people and stuff, because I felt, if you look at the, with Todd and Roger and Vinny and Ray B's and all, it was theirs. Like they said, hardcore scene started with like 25, 30 people. But I never got that vibe from Todd, Vinny, or Ray, or whatever. They were open. They knew where it was going, and they were happy that people were coming in and stuff like that. And, it was all about the music and stuff. And, but yeah, there was, a little like, I would imagine like this is, and I think Harley was a little like that. This is ours, not yours, and stuff like that. And got a little, not much, but a little like, you're an outsider or a newbie or whatever. But I think that happens with any scene, whatever, And but when I look at it, I understand it, because I only played and went to CBGBs maybe, from 84 to '88. And then I, moved, I don't say moved on my life, but I didn't play music anymore. And I, would go to shows, and I kept in touch with a lot of the guys because I still do, became my friends, for life. Just good people you meet. But it's like that with most people, they move on, they get older. It's so that origin for, I think, any music, even the start of punk rock in England, in the 70s, well, it came from the Ramones, but it's always that summer, or that, that particular time. It's usually like, that one year that was just like magic, sports, or somebody has a magical year. And that really starts like a ripple that just like, that just keeps going, and something. And I think that's a lot with a lot of different genres of music and different scenes, a little bit different now with all the, everything online and everything else. You had to do the footwork back then, so a little more, I don't know, commitment or whatever. I don't know if I'm jumping off topic, but it was, you had to be there, like you, and physically, it's, I don't know how it is now because I'm so far removed. But, I was just, my particular time in that was special. And, I just went up to see Ray up in his farm. He doesn't live too far from me. After all the, I hadn't seen him for years, Ray Capo.
Yeah.
But you see people and whatever, and most of them are doing good. It was a great positive, when I look at it, there's been a lot of tragedy and in the scene, a lot of lives lost, and drugs and stuff like that. But a lot of the guys from that particular whole little network, that whole straight edge or close to it, all those guys are doing very well. It's good to see. Speaking to like I said, lost a lot of people, but I keep in touch with some people, and I'm glad they're thriving and striving and still doing well and into their mid-50s and later.
Yeah. Speaking of Ray, him and Porcell moved to New York City in 1986. Can you talk about that time frame and like you getting into straight edge?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I with the straight edge thing, just I didn't call it, but I was when I was I grew up in a rough neighborhood. The old experimenting with drinking and smoking marijuana at such a very young age. Like 11, 12 years old, experimenting with acid and mescaline and stuff like that, and I got out of that, and the music helped me, so when Mayhem played, nobody drank in that band. Nobody drank or smoked or anything. We just wanted to play music. Wanted no time for any of that stuff, We figured, that's, it's just a distraction, So that was through and through. I just never labeled it. I just, but when I seen when Ray and John came in, and like saying coming a little later than Minor Threat, and seeing that, and then the Boston straight edge kind of thing, and that's what I think is a little more towards Ray and John, a little more of that back then. It's like a little more in your face kind of, but it was right up my alley, and Craig's, and all the guys there. I would say most of the guys, even Sick of Old didn't label, said nobody really drank, nobody did drugs, nobody. Like if you could see, that's what made it kind of, so good. I mean, because all that stuff went on in the '80s in the city, and they go on. But it was, everybody was healthy, exercised, ate good. Most people were vegetarians or experimenting with an alternative, so to say, lifestyle. But we seen I seen Ray in a band. I forgot the band he was in before, Violent Children. All right, so I met him then, and then they played CBGB's one time, as a youth of today, right? Seen him again, and we were Straight Ahead was already playing. I think we were corresponding. I had this 7-inch, and when they came down, I don't know exactly how it happened, but we were big fans of them, and that whole straight edge scene. And when they asked me to join. And then they were like, "You think you can get Craig?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he'll definitely come, because me and him are like two peas in a pod, So I went to I think Matt's house from Crippled Youth, and they had a room with a drum set up. I tried out, they took me. That's when they asked get Greg, and then we rehearsed at Giant Studio. And I think we were only rehearsed 2 or 3 times, if that. And then we played that. I forgot our first show. Was it CBGB's? It might have been the one that's on the tape. And it just, the energy level. I mean, you had, like 4 all-stars, hardcore all-stars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild.
I just got to stumble here. I thought I seen some coyotes. I'm like, no, they're just deer. Oh, there's a shitload of them. I got about a dozen deer running through my backyard right now. Nice to live in the country.
That's sick.
But
so
go ahead.
So talking about Straight Ahead, a lot of drummers become great frontmen. Like if you think about Ray Capo, Mike Judge did Death Before Dishonor and Youth Today. Rabies did AF. Chavo was in Red Cross before Black Flag, and of course Tommy Carroll in in your band before Straight Ahead. Why do you think that is? Why do you think like that pipeline?
I think drummers have that kind. Either drummers, what a drummer's going to do. You don't see too many drummers playing a string instrument, maybe bass, but and they're in the back. A lot of guys are back there. They're like, I want to be up front. But it's an energy thing. That's and for Mayhem, I sang and played drums because the kid Lance, going back to him, he had like a sore throat from screaming. His mother was like, "You're not playing in a band anymore," and all that. And so I just do like, "What are we gonna do for singing?" I was like, "I'll just do it." But when you have all that, man, it was just a ball of energy. You see the drum playing on Mayhem. I was just insane. It was just most of that. It just goes on the drive and the spirit of. I mean, I didn't know how to play drums. I just, played like I would sing, so, just screaming out there. So, became such chaos and just all that, just, you want to get out of I guess you want to use all that energy that you have as a young kid, and you just throw yourself in there, caution to the wind. It's like jumping in the pit, but, I would imagine, I can't speak for them, but, I would think, that something in there, like it translates, from, that, especially in hardcore, I don't know if I'm just making this up, but for me, I wanted to be out there. And then I don't know if there's ego involved, but you want to be up front. Being I sang and played drums always, and I just wanted to sing and be out there and just scream and, jump around, I guess.
Yeah.
But why I didn't even think of that with the other guys playing drums and
there's
singing,
a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah, there is. I guess there's something going inside. It's the only can give you my perspective of it,
Yeah, and it continues to this day. I threw out those '80s examples because I knew you'd know them. But is the Straight Ahead demo and the In the Warzone tracks, is that all the same recording?
No. They're different. I mean, you could tell by the vocals and everything else. Like, it's one thing when you're young. People are like, I didn't like the vocals on the 12-inch. But when you get older, your voice change. I mean, what was I on the one record? And, you're still developing and stuff. I mean, Straight Ahead was finished when I was only 17. I think we recorded the first one, I would say maybe I was 15 when we did End the Warzone.
Okay.
So, and we did that in a place, I forgot the name of the place, One Step Recordings or whatever. They became platinum, the guy. I think they did a couple single albums, a couple of hip hop albums. Guy was good. It was on 86th Street in Manhattan on the west side. And we went in there. I mean, we didn't have much money. I think we did it in 3 hours, And then when we sent it out to Mike Rubenstein, I had to send him a cassette because it was like we couldn't get it mixed and everything else. I'm like, this is as good as it's going to get. He needed a deadline to have it done and to send the reels. He was like saying, I didn't want to send the reels. I just wanted to master it and maybe copy it and then send him something on that. But it's, even from the reels, like the recording off a little amp, the guitar sounds, Rob always says it sounds like dirt. But it's, it sounded like it sounded on the way we recorded it, cause the guitar's a little muffled and everything else, but I sent him that cassette. So I'm trying to think when we actually recorded that. I don't know the date. The other one was recorded in 87.
Yeah. But Tommy,
ahead,
there's just 2 recordings though, right? It's like You do a
Yeah.
demo, and those are also the songs that are on In the War Zone, and then you do the breakaway 12-inch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'll
we
get
did
you.
that, a little while later, and we did
Right.
most of the same songs. I think we only added. We didn't. The thing was when we did Mayhem, and we did a lot. Straight had a lot of Mayhem songs. Gordon wrote all the songs. Greg wrote a couple, but Gordon was the songwriter. And so we just rehashed and refurbished a lot of that material. We had to hit a stump where we weren't writing any songs, and I don't know if we weren't any good at songwriting, but we got stumped a little bit. We came. There's a few songs. I mean, I think Gordon even wrote "Spirit of Youth." So we had a little trouble, like when we went in there, like what songs are we gonna do? We just keep doing the same songs. I mean, even when we played, I think our sets were never broke 30 minutes. We just didn't have enough material. The songs were so short. But yeah, we did right idea and breakaway. We added. We just wrote them on a whim. I actually just, I wrote those two songs, and that's the only two new ones that were on there, and they actually came out pretty good. I just more like hummed it to Craig, and he just translated it on there, and then Rob wrote all the solos and the guitar parts.
Yeah.
And so that was that. And we just had a hard time. I don't know. Nobody really wrote songs,
Tell me, let's stick with the In the Warzone era though, like 1986.
Okay.
Like that 7-inch comes out. What's Straight Ahead doing in '86? Like how are the shows? How packed? How gnarly? How's the vibe of Straight Ahead in '86 after that 7-inch comes out?
Yeah, I mean, when we played with other bands, we had a little more people. Like we had a crowd and stuff, but Straight Ahead was, like I said, was short lived. Like the shows were good. I remember we did one of the bigger shows where it was insane. It was actually a big riot outside CBGB's. That we one of the earlier shows. And funny, Mike Rubenstein came down to the show. I was working in a doorman building doing summer relief. He came down and visited me and hung out. And he wound up going to the CBGB show. One of our, I don't know if it was our first one, Straight Ahead, but if not, the second one. But that was a big crowd because it had like it was sort of like a Black and Blue before Black and Blue or Super Bowl hardcore, they used to call it. It had, like a dozen bands, Warzone, everybody. So that place was pretty packed. That was crazy. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of support. A lot of people knew us, and the network with all the other bands. I mean, going back to Sick of It All, Gorilla Biscuits, Token Entry, every band, all the other bands, I'm probably leaving a lot of bands out, supported each other. That's what's made it good. So if you just took like all the bands that played and put them in CBGBs, the place would be at least half filled.
Yeah.
So, but people just like, when you're that, young and flexible, it got insane, and it was nuts. It was like a complete workout, man. Even as a young kid, when you left that matinee on a Sunday, you were gassed. You just wanted to go home and go to bed. I remember me and Craig used to go to a place, Gandhi's, and have some Indian food, and then that was a wrap. Nice little music, a little sitar, and then relax and just that was the end of the night. We used to cap it off with that a lot of times.
Oh, so sick. What do you remember about recording the breakaway 12-inch?
We did it with Chuck Val, rest in peace. Chuck was a good friend of mine, and he was getting into working in the studio. He's as a matter of fact, he went to school for it, and I know he had talent in that as well, being a really good bass player. And like I said, we were pretty close. We hung out a lot, and he offered. He goes, "Look, I got studio time for putting in all these hours, but the thing is, we got to do it like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning." So and we only had so much time that he had, so we had to do it. That's what gave us trouble with the vocals, coming in at 3, 4 in the morning, and and just how was I going to sing? And my fluences changed, but it made it a little tough at that night, even for we're younger guys. But I don't know how many sessions we did, but we only could do so much time. I want to do, the choosing of songs and everything else. We just had to make it, we just put 6 songs together, and that was it. But like I said, he mixed it and everything else. And when the product was done, which he did a real good job on, we didn't know what to do with it. We just did it because he had time to do it. We had no intention of putting it out as a record. So we never went in recording that as going to be a record. We just did it for ourselves. And he was like, I don't know how this is going to come out. I'm just new to this and just doing this. So he was like, you want to record a Chung King, So it was a opportunity to record at a, pretty prestigious place. And that's all there is to that, and then you want to go on from there. Then Dwayne from Some Records was like, this is good. I played it for him. He was like, I'll put some money together and I'll put it out. And then it came out, pressed about 1,000, 1,200 copies, and then a couple more times. But we broke up right around that time.
Yeah, a couple things, Tommy. First of all, I've never heard anyone complain about your vocals, so that's hilarious. Like what? Do you feel some sort of way about them?
Not 2 years later. Well, I don't think the band was like, just that, whatever, trying to do and stuff. They like the more clean, vocals leaning more towards not emo, but a little more, just like just a standard straight through voice. And I guess I was still finding my identity and my influences, obviously as a big HR fan, so, you try to emulate, the people that you kind of idolize. And, just from there, But I only seen that years later, and when it came on YouTube, right? I started getting into social media comments around, and I would look at them. I did, and I didn't even know it was on there. My daughter put me on Facebook in 2009, so I didn't even I just had the regular flip phone, and then up until around maybe 2008, late to the times I got, and then I started seeing all this stuff on YouTube and everything else. And people like, you're in a video, they got the, Pete Sake show and all this stuff. And, all the recordings, the few that we had. And then you go to the comment section stuff. I would say, 90% of them were positive, a few thumbs down and everything else. But the comments, the 7-inch was better, or Tommy was better on drums. I seen a lot of those, and I probably was, that's, I don't disagree with that.
No, this is insane. Also, the dude getting the record and being like, "Oh, this is good." Like that's the understatement, of the decade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I gotta punish you here and jump in. Can we get your take on all the songs? So, what is your opinion on Not Afraid?
Yeah, it's a good song. I mean, it's a good hardcore song. When we there's something you said. I mean, if you go back to rock and roll, the three power chords, the three it's just it's just simple. It doesn't think it's and I think we try to do that a little bit. We were a little more melodic with some songs, but some songs we just try to keep it simple and just straightforward and just power. There's something to be said about that. I wouldn't call it dumbing it down, but some of the songs we just, straight and direct. And that's like, your typical straight and direct, hardcore song with your bam, 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 bam. Those things, sometimes simple's the best way to go,
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to state TV here. We're all fans, right? So, okay, let's get into Breakaway. How you feel about this one?
Oh, I love it. I wrote it.
You write everything. You wrote everything on this.
No. I only wrote Right Idea and Breakaway.
Okay.
All the other songs. Those are probably the only two songs I ever wrote in the band. And like I said, I just okay.
But this song, you wrote the music, you wrote everything.
Yes. Yeah. For that song. So that was that was just the last two songs written for Straight Ahead. So I always thought we got, I guess, tired and it wasn't going anywhere, I guess. And but I always thought, I mean, look at the musicians I played with. I was just fortunate to play with them. But you have some bad turns and stuff, and a lot of things can destroy a band and break up a band. But I thought Straight Ahead could have been a very, very good band. I mean, look at the musicianship. These guys are smart. They're good. They got drive. They still play to this day. but I thought the direction was going. It would have been interesting. There was definitely, me being the least talented, being humble, and those guys being very talented. It definitely would have, it was going somewhere, in terms of that, and slowing songs down a little bit and changing the pace and different things. I mean, even Long Breakaway, it's just, it's great. I still listen to it every once in a while. Secretly I got my headphones on, but yeah, great song. It's all that stuff. I mean, like I said, straight and direct. Just it's good stuff.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. The first time when you heard the solo on the end of that song, did it bring you back to like your early metal days? You're just like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I think that would have been like, you go from one direction to another. You're finding yourself. You're playing all different things, and it's people like, oh, they change. Well, maybe we jumped in, changed songs, and maybe, I wouldn't say jumped on a bandwagon, but we wanted to do something else. But after all that, as kids, experimenting, doing things with music and stuff like that, what would be the final product? Say when we were like in our early 20s, that definitely would have been, I mean, I had like a little resentment for metal with in certain ways, like, how it, different things that went down or what I experienced kind of like shunned me away from it. It was a little, I don't know, little, hardcore was more intimate, and it's a better place for me. It was a better place to develop musically, so it stripped everything down, to that point, and then you could do stuff. It was a little more, I wouldn't say accepted, because maybe, I don't know, choosing words correctly is a little tough, but just for me, it seemed like that was like the incubator to start something to grow from. It was, that's, we were in one way. We weren't getting shows at L'Amour's. We weren't getting any metal shows. We got places to show pals. We weren't getting, but in hardcore, the network, it seemed like you got shows, you got to play and perform in front of people, and just, exactly what we wanted to be. I have nothing against metal, but screaming. I don't know. It seemed like, I don't know, like I wanted to do something a little different.
Yeah,
take
but
it so seriously with all the that kind of direction with anything on it. Like a band like Metallica stripped down their pure, metal and stuff like that. But other bands and stuff and makeup and stuff, like, I don't know, just wasn't just screaming in a certain voice and stuff. I don't know. It just wasn't for me, I guess. I'm nothing against it, but I just like I said, I wanted a place and a chance to grow somewhere.
But a song like Breakaway, is so great because it is really stripped down, but then you let loose at the end. Like that solo is great.
Yeah. And we didn't have, we didn't have any solos in many of our songs, and Rob always tries to squeeze some in,
Yeah.
He's a very talented guy. I mean, and it, how to let him, like when you want to bang the drums or scream as loud as you can, you got to let the guy live, man. That's, he's a phenomenal guitar player. You got to take what the other members contribute and you got to use it. Otherwise, why are they in the band?
Yeah, so good. Okay, We Stand. What do you think?
Yeah, though, I love those fast songs. Big DRI, Stark Raven Mad. Love that stuff. I don't know, translated a lot. Like New York hardcore wasn't really so much about that. They had like fast part, but I love that fast shit. That was, I mean, when I listened to my drumming on Mayhem, I love just balls out speed. And those, I mean, I played drums on End of Warzone. I guess you know that, right?
Yeah.
I played drums on it. Yeah, I liked that fast stuff, Didn't always translate well at live shows, like you can throw a few of them in there. But yeah, I mean, On Parade, Who's to Blame, those fucking great songs,
Yeah, and this version of We Stand is better. You add the gangs.
Yeah. The other one's a little, it's different. It's a little more, like I said, as you get a little older, you start adding things and stuff, little licks here, a little added to it stuff. So always looking to improve even old songs, but it's a good song.
But in the history of hardcore, like when a lot of bands like re-record their old stuff, like they totally fucking flub it, you know? And this is like a rare example of a band like improving an old song.
Yeah, but it was, the gap is not that big.
That's
You know,
true.
you got to
That's true.
remember the
Yeah,
gap.
it's a year.
It may not
Yeah,
even be a year, you know?
yeah.
The
Yeah,
gap
for
wasn't
sure.
that big, so it's not, you know?
That's right.
And but I think if you looked at a lot of demos, even going back to metal or other bands, I mean, they re-recorded and re-record this demo, 3-song demo, 5-song demo, and they kind of did the same songs for, you know, what seemed like a long time when they were developing. But you know, now as bands grew, they didn't do those songs anymore, and you want to hear them, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, that, like I said, the window for me for music was, you know, like a short straight ahead song, you know. It was, you know, it was very fast. It was short and fast, you know,
Yeah.
but good, you know.
For sure. What's your take on Right Idea?
Oh yeah, I like that song a lot. That's kind of like the direction. You know, like I said, as you play, your musicianship gets better, your songwriting. You know, you want to try different things. You know, not everything. You know, a lot of the shows you go to, it's just one bam going across, and that's great. But you know, sometimes the band wants to do a little bit more than that. And I thought "Right Idea" was a pretty interesting song. You know, I thought it was. You know, what was to come, you know, from straight ahead. Probably always would have did fast stuff and did stuff, but you know, like you branch out, you change your musical taste and your direction, you know. But that's one of my favorite straight ahead songs.
Yeah, you know, if someone put a gun to my head and was like, you got to lose one song off this 12-inch, it might be the one I lose, but also it's the song that I think makes the 12-inch so special because, like, it's just a punk song. And it's kind of
Yeah,
sick that, like, this, you know, straight edge hardcore band, like, getting wrapped into that era is just going to play like a mid tempo punk song that sounds so gnarly and so, like, meaty, you know?
yeah. You know, even the solos, just it's different. You
Yeah.
know, it's a little bit different. And, like I said, everything, you know, band there's you know different songs and. When you even older bands, like when you listen to all these different songs and like different things play, like even take a band like Kiss with "I Was Made for Loving You." Like everybody hated that song as a kid. I was a big Kiss fan as a kid. I was to makeup and stuff, and I grew up in the '70s. Right, I'm showing my age here, but you know now, like when certain bands play like the songs, it just mixes in with everything else they've done. Like you don't really see the distinction between the songs. You know, it's just part of their repertoire or you know the songs they play they don't there's not really much as a difference as I guess you first heard them, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. The
but
song Straight Ahead.
yeah, that's our anthem, you know. I mean, I got up even sick of it all over the years, got up half dozen times or so to sing it, you know. It's a good song, you know. It stayed alive. I'm glad sick of it all, put it on the record, and I'm glad they still do it every now and then, you know. And yeah, it's you know it was Think Right first, and I think Greg wrote that song, and yeah, I mean I wrote the lyrics for everything, but yeah, it's the anthem. The lyrics are great; they're inspiring, and you know it's you know it's what's probably our most you know distinguished song or whatever, lack of a better word. But yeah, it's you know it's a good song. You know?
Yeah, good. Again, we're understating stuff, right? This is one of the
Yeah.
greatest songs in the history of music. So there's
Yeah.
that. Okay, Spirit of Youth.
Yeah, I like that song too. Gordon wrote that song, and I remember when we played at the show place a lot. You know, even as all as New York City Mayhem. So one of the last shows we played there, Dave from Mental Abuse was a friend of mine as well. He played drums on Victim in Pain. He was in Gnostic Front for a while, and he started band Mental Abuse, and they were a fun band. And he took a liking to us, and he booked us there a lot. And we played there a lot, and I remember one of the last shows we did. Gordon had wrote like a hardcore song, "Spirit of Youth," and we did it. And Greg played drums, and I got out and sang, and just, you know, go and play guitar. And they were 3-piece, and just no bass player, you know. And that was that's that's when I got the taste of, being a front man, But great songs, those, it's a good anthem, good sing along. It's the feelings in the title of the song, it's true. Spirit of youth, still trying to hold on to that.
Yeah, that's pretty like that's poetic in a way, right? Like you're out there, like this is like the first song you do, like a song called "Spirit of Youth," and then it's like the last straight ahead song.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, when you look back, you can define it as whatever you like to, whatever it means to you. But yeah, it's it is. I mean, that whole thing right there was, just to be remembered. And doing this interview, I'm 55 years old, and just of this carrying on, and people still have interest, and it's I think a large part of it is because a lot of guys still play in Signal's very popular band, and they were like our little brother band. I think Craig, they played their first show at Right Track In. We gave them a gig, and that was when I think Straight Ahead and Youth of Today played on the same bill with me and Craig playing in both bands. Right, it was like we're never doing that again. But but yeah, it's like I said, it's to be remembered and such. So I agree to it. I think there's a little bug flying around, like because when I did an interview a while back, he goes, "Yeah, you're the last guy I got." And I was like, "The other guys all agreed, and they interviewed." And I keep in touch with Greg the most, Rob a little bit, not so much Armand, but Greg, big boxing fan, so we talk a lot of boxing stuff, and shoot texts back and forth and stuff like that. But yeah, it's hardcore, did a lot for me. It was like those high school years is such important times in your life, and you did it to do it like we did there and CBGBs and getting into music, how it actually developed and happened, and you just wound up there. And there's really no greater feeling. I was a small part of it, but it was an important part of my life, and to see it still goes and people have interest really makes me feel good, it really does.
Yeah, there was a Spirit of Youth remix that came out in '98. What was the story with that? Do you remember anything about that?
No,
It was on some
98.
comp. It's okay. It's also around the same time that you did that Hardcore for Hunger benefit show in '98.
I don't remember any of that. Somebody did it without me and my knowledge.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
So
Maybe I got bad info.
No, you might have. So somewhere around that time, I remember Sigvidor was playing, and I forgot the club on the west side, the venue, but Straight Ahead got up and did several songs, and this is like 10 years removed. Like it was okay. It was a little rough, it was like so far removed of it. And Greg was like, we Sigvidor, where they rehearse, he goes, Danny's coming down with it's like hard drive. We're gonna record some songs. Do you want to sing on them? And I did, but he was like, Tom, it didn't come out that great, I'm like, all right, we did Free Spirit, which was Sigvidor does, but that was a Straight Ahead song. And we never played it live because we didn't stick together long enough. And we did, I never even heard the recording. But so I couldn't tell you how the vocals went. So I don't know if it came out. I don't know how many songs we did, but we actually did PBM from New York City Mayhem on it. And that Rob, Armand, and Craig and me, we recorded these songs. I think there was, and then when we did a new song, I would say there may be 6 songs, but I couldn't even tell you what they were, what songs we did. I forgot, but I never heard it. Greg never gave me a copy of it. And it just, I don't know, is Spirit of Youth on it? I mean, the vocals sound so different. I'm probably, I got to be like 27 years old when I sing on it. So it's a little different, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how it came out.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just all those things happen
What is
right
this
around
on
like
98? You're telling me about that. Was it Spirit of Youth? Is it from the 2 recordings from End of War Zone, or is it something totally different?
Let me pull it up. It was listed as, I'm going to say his name wrong, like the Chuck Valet remix. It was on an
Okay.
LP called The Brotherhood of the Anti-God. It came out in 1998.
Okay.
Scarhead, Marauder, Coming Correct, District 9,
Yeah,
or some
Chuck
other
Val
bands on
did
it.
it. It's from the 1987 recordings.
Yeah, yeah. So he
Because
just remixed it.
Danny Loca from Nuclear Assault did, like I said, we did, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 songs. I don't really remember, but we did a couple of Mayhem songs. The music, he gave me the cassette to the music to practice the vocals. I don't know what I did with it, but it sounded fucking awesome.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
music was just like, man, it was something. But I went in maybe once, and they wanted to put it out, but it just got scrapped. He goes, yeah, the vocals didn't come out good and whatever, so I didn't, and I was so far removed. I just did it to see everybody. I wasn't, at that point in time, I was so far removed from it, but I do, enjoy those guys' company, and, I do like to see them and make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah, why has there not been official repress of the Breakaway 12-inch? Like it seems
Oh,
like kind of criminal because it's a classic hardcore record. I have like 6 bootlegs of it, but
yeah.
the people
Yeah,
need it. You know what I mean?
I don't like I don't think we never copyrighted anything, I'm going on saying this, but somebody was to use it, I wouldn't probably see a dime of anything. I'm sure it's been used around. People have sent me like bootleg records and stuff, but I still to this day merchandise or whatever. I don't know if anybody does, if Craig or whatever. Rob had called me a while back about it, and just I'm like, like I said, I don't know. Like stuff people tell me things, I see things on YouTube and I have no idea. I'm like, I just haven't been. Maybe if I was still in the music scene, I would have been more involved. But you would have to talk to Craig about that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
He's the only one that's still like. I said when we did that songs in '98 or '97, whenever it was, like we recorded those songs, I gave him all my stuff, all my pictures, all the pictures Bri Hurley took that gave me from when she did that hardcore book. I gave him all the stuff, and I never seen it again. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but you go through things. I mean, there's ups and downs in life. So I threw a lot of stuff out. I moved. I lived through a couple of fires. You lose a lot of stuff, which is unfortunate. Maybe at the time you don't care, but then it's time flies by, and I wish I would have had that. There was also another one when you asked me about. I'm rambling on here, but you asked me about shows. So some of the best shows that Straight Ahead played was after like their reunion shows. The one when we did the benefit for Roger Moret, that was so insane, and we were a little older. We opened to it right idea. We did about 6 songs. They ripped the PA system down. So they stopped the show, and that place was so packed. That was the atmosphere, and there was so electric, And I had a friend of mine videoed it, and I never knew what happened to the video. That show, I mean, Pete's Sake this one was absolutely insane. And, it was, there was another one we did. But, yes, like I said, you get so far removed and so distant from it. I've been out of music, for so long. I just, I've been so out of touch with it.
What
So
do you want? What do you want the legacy of Straight Ahead to be, and also what do you want like your personal legacy in music to be?
I just that it survived is, like pretty awesome to me. And like I said, I think it's because of the people I played with, obviously. I think mostly, because it carries on, and it's always like, who was that band? And they're doing so, when you get into like the root of something, even though it was second generation of the hardcore New York hardcore scene, it's still 40 plus years ago. And like, even if you're obviously a music lover and probably like other music other than hardcore, but when you look at that, and I'm losing my chain of thought here, like you want to get to the roots of something. You want to see what band made that band good, what band who doing this song, and you want to get to the origin of things and stuff. And being it's just a small little taste of Straight Ahead, and a couple of videos of these crazy shows and everything else is such, people want more, but there is no more. That's the little taste that you have,
Yeah.
but it's, I don't really, legacy. I'm just I'm a regular guy, regular kid, and I was a regular kid. I'm an older man now, but I just to be, to have it, that it helps someone out, whatever. Music helped me in so many ways, it helped me in my life and what it led to. And, I got the same feeling one time at your boxing, because it was the same feeling. I used to go in there and just throw 1,000 punches around, and just with the same attitude and the same, like fears that I played music with. And that led to so many things, just a healthier lifestyle, healthier living. I had my ups and downs as life went on, but, that definitely shaped and made who I am, I am today. And as far as legacy, I'm just glad people remember it, and if it helps you out in any way, it's like anything else. A good song can do a lot for you on a bad day. And so forth and so on, Just, I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm glad to be remembered. That's all I really, I'm glad to see it continuing.
Thanks again to Tommy Carroll for taking the time. I hope you all enjoyed that. Kev, final thoughts.
Great interview, really informative, really appreciated it. And hardcore is just say it over and over, in a great spot right now. It's been a good year already, and there's just a million things still to come. Also, just didn't talk too much about the Combust record, but I do think that is another one where a band put real effort into the LP, and you can really tell, and it's kind of their definitive work. So just wanted to shout that out, because I do really appreciate when you can tell that a lot of effort was put into a record. And I think that Combust record is really a good showcase of that.
That's true. We didn't talk it in depth, but we did shout it out first, because it is a very notable record and the best thing that they've done. And it sounds great. So shout out Combust. Everyone, get at me, 185 miles south at gmail.com, 185 miles south on all the socials. Kev, where can people find you?
Not Fair to Flare on Instagram, and hit up False Salvation. I think it's False Salvation HC on Instagram, but you can find it. Just check it out.
Everyone, we love you all. We'll talk to you again next Monday on Patreon.